Hello and welcome to Three Peaks Podcast, where we take a break from the hike of life and appreciate the view. Today we have a very special guest, Scott Williams. He's an entrepreneur, business owner, and advertiser. Also does commercial real estate, and you're a stock educator. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Again, I'm Scott Williams. So I'm a business owner, investor. I live here in Salt Lake City, and I live here with my beautiful wife and my son. And I've been out here about 10 years. So it's been really great. Love the mountains. But I've done a lot of different stuff in the business world, including commercial real estate, stock options investing, and education, and a lot of marketing and different business consultation, stuff like that. So I've got a really weird and diverse background. It's not linear like a lot of people's is. A lot of people just have one kind of main career that they follow or that path. I've had a very, twisty, turny path that I've followed over the years, but it's given me a breadth of knowledge, and hopefully I can share some of that with you guys today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. All right. So first of all, I want to say congratulations on hitting 1,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. That just happened a couple of days ago, and I don't know if they give preferential treatment to people who, as soon as they hit 1,000, because it jumped up a couple hundred more than that right after. So it's awesome. It's awesome to see that growth. I never really intended to be a YouTuber and grow that channel, but it's nice. It's nice to have that. And once you get to 1,000 subscribers and a certain amount of viewing hours, like 4,000 viewing hours, you can monetize. So, which is great, right? So you can let advertisers basically pay you to place their ads over the top of your stuff, which is annoying as a person watching YouTube, but it's of course great to have another revenue stream.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a question about your YouTube channel.
Sure.
So because you're an investor and you have all this information, and sharing it with people is extremely easy. So why did you decide to start your YouTube channel in the first place?
So the YouTube channel really just came as, I'm not sure why I really started it. A partner of mine and I started a financial education company several years ago, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. It's called Relentless Trading. So we originally built some we used to teach classes in person. So we'd have 6, 7, 8 people come to our office downtown, and we teach them about how to trade stock options, mainly selling stock options in that world. It's a very unique style of trading, so not a ton of people are out there doing it. It's a little less high adrenaline than a lot of the kids want to do these days with day trading, but it's a little more secure. But it takes a little while to learn and perfect. So we used to teach those classes in person. Around the time COVID hit, we were already really working on this, but it accelerated our plan is to just build it into a course. So instead of accessing a couple of people, a small handful of people, 6 or 7 people per class, we could access as many as the internet would provide for us. So we filmed all of the coursework and packaged it all together, and then started selling it. And a lot of those clips were really good. Some of the information would be, I guess, proprietary. So we didn't want to release that for free. But all the other information that was more general, it was great to share on YouTube. So that's how it started. And it's just kind of developed from there. I took a while off really using YouTube because I've been busy with my other businesses. But a couple recent investment decisions that I made have got a lot of traction on YouTube. I made a video. I don't know how many thousands of views it has, 17,000 or something. I don't know. It's a lot, more than any of my other videos. Once I posted that, there was clearly a demand for additional videos on that specific investment and those type of investments. So my last dozen videos have just been on that in particular. But I don't know why I started it originally, probably to get more traction on my financial education business. But it's good to share the information however you can.
Yeah. And there's probably a lot of complications with starting from the rock bottom and building it up to what it is now. So what are some of the problems you ran to with sharing the information?
Um, well, I had to teach myself how to use a camera and lighting and build course materials as far as like just slides and everything. I mean, yeah, I kind of had to figure it all out on my own, right? How to use all of it, how to film it, make it look good, what mic to use, what cadence to use, how to not overwhelm people with too much information. So how do I back it down and go, okay, I know it, but how do I explain it to someone who's never heard it before, right? How do you explain taking the opposite side of a stock options trade? It's very difficult. So a lot of it was, me spending countless hours, many nights until 2, 3 a.m. Writing stuff and then reorganizing it and ordering it and everything and trying to find a way that I could deploy that information to people to where they'd actually understand. Because it's one thing to try to teach people something, but if you don't have the right flow and they're not understanding it, then you're wasting your time and you're wasting theirs as well. So it takes a little bit to get used to, and that was challenging because it's just something new I had to learn. No one was there to tell me what direction I should go. So that was a big part of it, teaching myself how to teach in the correct way, especially in financial language is different. Most people don't know it. And then just the platforms, YouTube, Teachable, Kajabi, all these other platforms that host your services. You got to learn that software too. And so there's just a big learning curve. But I'd say my advice is you just have to get started, just like you guys, right? You start your podcast, you're going to record it. You're going to look back in 6 months at this episode and go, gosh, this looked like crap. It sounded like crap, right?
Yeah.
But it's just how it always goes. I look back at my old stuff. I'm like, this was terrible. How did I get any likes on this stuff?
Yeah.
So it's really just about starting, getting used to it, perfecting it, figuring out what you do and don't like. But yeah, just day one, you got to start it up and roll the dice and see what happens.
Yeah, and with like what you were saying is like YouTube is a great tool to learning new things and stuff like that. And with people, they kind of had short like attention spans and kind of lose interest in what they're trying to learn. With you, what helps you kind of like captivate your audience and get them interested in what you're teaching them?
I think in social media in general, if you can find a particular topic that you can be an expert in. So for you guys, if you do a lot of podcasts with business owners and things like that, and you're asking about this type of education, that's a niche. And people want to understand that niche very well. They want to understand more finance. They want to talk to some entrepreneurs that's interesting to them. If you go off and you start talking about something completely different, you're also sharing baseball with your channel because you're really into baseball, and you're also sharing something else. It makes it really difficult for people to gather that information. So you kind of got to stay on topic, just figure out what the topic's going to be, and then elaborate on that. So people have a really short attention span. So I'll do different things. Some segments are 5-6 minutes, especially in my course. The course is like 18 hours long or something crazy like that. But some of the segments are like 4 minutes, and some of them are like 30 minutes because I can't take a break in between explaining this concept. But I would say if you're gonna do little, I'd say if you're going to try to teach people, like right now, if you guys want to teach people something, keep it to 1, 2, 3, 4 minute segments of you teaching them so they can absorb it and they'll actually watch it. And then branch out from there. Once they're sucked in and they know that you provide really good content, then they'll sit down and watch a 20-minute video with you. If not, they're just going to capture the first couple minutes, take whatever away from it. I think the average watch time of a video on YouTube is like 5 minutes. So even though the average time of a video on YouTube is for like 15 minutes. So it's people just get their first few minutes, then their attention span goes out the window and they lose it. So you just got to try to add as much value as you can and see what happens. See if people actually want to listen to you.
And with YouTube, it's usually meant to put out long and more complicated content. But on sources like TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, people are able to make reels and video posts of short 15 to 30 and 60-second videos. And it's probably really hard to put out information in that small of a time frame. But on your Instagram account, you're also able to give that information to your followers. So is there any complications you run into when you're trying to share this financial information to people on social media like Instagram and Twitter?
Sure, absolutely. With the shorter time frames of those platforms, I struggle a little bit personally because I like to describe the scenario very well so people can really understand it, and that comes with analogies, and analogies take time. So I'm a little longer winded when I'm trying to explain a concept because I really want it to sink in on 2 or 3 different planes, right? And the ideal way to get people to remember information is you tell them what you're going to tell them, you actually tell it to them, and then you tell them what you just told them, right? So they're almost hearing it 3 times. That repetition helps it actually sink in. That's very difficult to do on these shorter platforms. So what I do, it's harder for me to describe like aspects of stock options trading, things like that on there. The other areas of my life, business and stuff, I can do it pretty quickly with a 1 or 2 liner. I can keep it under 1 minute, just of some valuable information, just a snippet, and then people got to go elsewhere to get more, like YouTube or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And I see on your Instagram, and like you said, you have businesses and companies, and I've seen you talk about this thing called drip. Could you tell us more about what that is?
Sure. So it's a pretty interesting one, and it's relatively new. But drip lands in what's called decentralized finance, right? It's a totally new thing. Really, only been around for a couple of years. So it's in its infancy. It is not regulated. It is high risk in certain categories. So you got to be really careful about this world. But it's a world in which, if you find the right projects, you can make millions of dollars. So it's just like getting into crypto early, right? Like if you try to buy Bitcoin 10 years ago, you'd have no idea how. There's no Coinbase. You can't just Google it, right? It was difficult to go find that because you had to buy it through obscure platforms and everything. It's kind of the same thing with decentralized finance, like drip tokens, and I'll explain what it is. But drip tokens, you can't buy them directly. You have to buy. They ride on the Binance Smart Chain network. So you have to buy Binance coin or BNB, transfer it from an exchange from wherever you bought it to a MetaMask wallet, which is a third-party wallet that sits out in the cloud and it's secure. Then you connect that wallet over to the Drip website. Then you convert BNB over to Drip, and then you stake Drip in the system. So when you tell that to most people, they're like, "What did you just say?" And that's part of the risk, is it's very difficult for people to understand some of these new concepts. That's why some people make a ton of money, because they're willing to like gamble on it and try to learn something that's very obscure. And and some people shy away from it. But this in particular one is a staking protocol. So the guy who created Drip basically designed a contract. These smart contracts are just what tells the system what to do, which is rules. So it says, hey, if I put money in here, the contract automatically on the back end is going to pay you out 1% per day on the money you've invested. So all that stuff's built into the protocol. It's all built into the code, so you can't override it. That includes taxes and everything. But the idea of Drip is you deposit money into the account. It locks that money up, and it will pay you out 1% of that money that you deposited for 365 days. So if you locked up $10,000, in about 100 days, you'd break even, and then you'd be able to get paid for another 265 days. Now that's if you just made one deposit. Now, if you took the money you made, if you got $10,000 and you're making about $100 a day. If you take that $100 a day and roll that back in, now you have 10,100. You're earning 1% on that, and that'll pay out for 365 days. So it's kind of a rolling system. There is a cap. It's like 100,000 drip tokens, but that's several $1 million. So it's not the cap isn't a huge deal, but that's how a lot of these protocols work. Some are very trustworthy. Some are much more high risk, like they'll pay like 8 or 17% a day. But they're set up like Ponzi schemes. People know that they're set up like that. But Drip is, I would still say it's medium risk. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a low risk or high risk. I'd say it's medium risk, but it's the platform that I am actually most excited about. And I think it's just at such a low price right now to get in, a low barrier of entry, that I think people are going to make a lot of money on it coming in the next 12 months. I mean, I think it's tremendous. It's just a little bit difficult to get into, and I explain that in all my YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Hopefully that explained it. Sorry, it's a mouthful.
Yeah. No, that was awesome. And for usually a lot of people, when they're thinking about making money, like teenagers per se,
Sure.
they say they'll find a job they're interested and they like it and they're working there. They make a lot of friends and they think that it's like, okay, I'll be working at this job for the rest of my life. And they rely on that income to pay for their expenses, gas, and et cetera, et cetera. But they are not making any investments to create money with making their basically allowing their money to build up on itself. So
Sure.
one thing a lot of people don't know is about passive income. And we were wondering if you could tell us what exactly that is.
Sure. So first, let me go back to the first part of what you were saying. So when you're young and you're working at a job, especially now, people are like, "Oh man, these guys have all these passive income streams. I need to invest in that right away." Right? I think it's important to realize that the first investment you should make is in your education. And I don't care where you get it. You could get it from college, you could get it from books, you could take a course or whatever. That needs to be your first investment. Everybody wants to know how to make $1 million trading stock options. No one wants to spend $300 on a course that actually teaches them how to do it. So what they do is they take their $300, they throw it in the stock market, they lose it in a week, and they think, "Oh, that's a scam. It's not for me." Well, you didn't educate yourself to begin with. So for me, a lot of young people are like, "Well, how do I get successful?" If you can't tell me what book you're currently reading, what you learned from it, some little course you're taking, then you're not even ready to be successful. Like all that learning has to come up front, and then you decide what you want to do. So education is the most important. Do that first. Passive income is really just leveraging time is really what it comes down to. So when you're working in a job, that's hours. You're trading the hours that you're working for dollars, right? There's no way that if you don't go to work, you don't make money. Passive income streams, you're utilizing an asset or something to actually make that money. So it really works on its own without you being there. So that would be like a rental property. The rental property sits there. You may have to go do maintenance once a quarter, but they're just going to pay their rent, and that's how you're going to take your percentage of it. Something like the decentralized finance space, like Drip Network, that's paying you 1% per day. So that's sitting there working through the protocol, paying out. There's some stuff's more passive and less passive. Like I have an Amazon store, e-commerce store. That's relatively passive. I'll work on it a few hours a week, but for the most part, it's just out there selling and everything. I have to do some updates, but it's making money while I sleep. And, so I don't have to trade my hours for dollars. So it's really to find that balance. You need to be first educating yourself. If you got your job and you're earning a little bit of money, spend a little bit of money on education, books, whatever it is, absorb a little bit of education, and then start to get into the space, start to dabble with stocks, buy a few, lose some money on some, buy a few more, figure it out. So use the money that you're making from your day job to invest in assets that will pay you out, whether it's stocks or crypto or whatever it is. You just have to start. And the earlier you start, the more money you'll make, because the compounding aids over time is massive. Too many people start too late.
Yeah. And you said about books. So I was wondering, there's a lot of great books out there that give you education about financing. And I was wondering if you ever had the chance to read The Richest Man in Babylon.
I have, yeah. Great book.
Great book.
Yep. That is a great book. I read a lot. I've read a lot over the years. I mean, some years I read, 100 books in a year. Anymore, I do a lot of research. I spend a lot of my time reading other things, but I still probably minimum I read in a year is like 25 books in a year. So I'm still getting a good amount of knowledge in. I'd say 1 out of 10 books that I read, I think is really good, and I'd recommend to people. And I think that's just if you read a lot, I think that's just what you're going to end up with. But one book that I recommend everybody reading, you guys may have already read it, but Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki is probably one of the first books that I read, and I'm like, it just clicked. I'm like, I get it. Assets over liabilities, like that's major. So definitely read that one. There's like Rich Dad Poor Dad for teens. There's a bunch of different versions of it, so you can start reading it as soon as you want. But it's an easy read. and the concepts are invaluable and they'll always be true. Like, they're universal. So that's a good one. I could list off 1,000 books that I think are good. Another one would be The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. That's another really good book that I recommend you reading. It's about all the little tiny decisions that you think are insignificant that you're making every day, how they can add up to either really positive effects or really negative effects. That's another good one, but I could go on forever about books.
Yeah. Also, The 10 Pillars of Wealth by Alex Becker. Have you also read the
I
chapter?
don't think I've actually read that one, which is surprising. It may actually be on my wish list in Audible.
Yeah, great book.
That's
And
awesome.
so,
What are your guys'
and-
favorites? What are you guys' favorite books?
oh, my favorite is The Richest Man in
Yeah,
Babylon.
it's
It's
a great
very
one.
short, concise, and like it has a story about how a person learns like keeping 10% of what you earn is yours to keep, and like that builds up, and like you can literally have $1 million. Like every single person is literally a millionaire. My brother says that, because if you think about it, all the money we've accumulated over our entire lifetime makes us all millionaires. The problem is like we're constantly spending it on things that we don't even get to keep the money. So yeah, I just found The Richest Man in Babylon a great book.
No, great book, and it's a really easy read, so it's easy to digest. Those story-based books that teach you something, they're easy to follow along with, and then you can identify with that character in the book. But I agree with you. I think that's the issue. I think poor people, and a lot of it just comes from their upbringing. They're taught to just consume, and they're not really taught to invest. And it's really about delayed gratification. The marker of success for almost everyone is, are you willing to accept delayed gratification? They do that little test with kids. They give them 2 marshmallows and they say, I'll be back in 15 minutes. If you don't eat them, then you'll get more. And the kids generally that don't eat them, then they have more success in life. So you have to be willing to give up something now for something that's going to be greater in the future. And so when you're young, that new car looks awesome. You really want it. It's going to impress your friends or whatever. But instead, if you pulled, money together with your siblings and picked up a couple of riding lawnmowers and then rolled that into a landscaping business, you'd make 10 times more. Then you still want that new car. You roll that into a rental property, and then, you go from there. So it's really, you'll find that all the stuff that matters to kids when you're young, about the time you hit your late 20s, early 30s, nobody cares. No, everyone's got their families and everything going on. They don't care what they drive. They don't care about any of that. Yeah. The most important thing when you meet up with people later, like what I'm impressed with, like I know a bunch of people with super nice cars, Lamborghinis and all that stuff. I like the cars, but I'm not super impressed. I'd much rather have a conversation about their rental properties, about the apartment complex they're looking to buy, all that stuff, because that gets the wheels turning. Yeah. The cars and stuff, they're just a depreciating asset.
Yeah, absolutely. And like with younger ages continuing to learn, they are reading less books. And books like these are the types of books they should be reading, but they never are granted access to it or even know that they even exist. So
yeah,
what would you say the advice to a younger generation that needs to learn about these like pillars and how to make wealth and like manifest it?
Sure. So first, I'm going to disagree with you. I think that people, especially young kids, do have access to all that. The problem is every piece of information they need is right here. Everything. This wasn't available when I was young. So you had to get like Encyclopedia Britannicas, like when I was in high school is when internet was dial up, and it was almost useless. Like you could go on and do stuff, but it was so slow that you would try to do book reports. You'd get to one website and you'd get some information off of it. So it was fairly useless until I was more in like the college range. But all the information is available right here. The problem is kids want to look at TikTok instead of research some sort of investment strategy, which is more complicated, because it's easier to consume. And like you said, we got that short attention span. I want to watch a video that's under 60 seconds rather than watch a 40-minute video on, how foreign exchange market works. So, an easy Google search on your phone will tell you all the top 10 investment books. And then you start there. And I'll tell you what, if you, and I didn't like reading when I was young. Like when I was really young, I did. And then once I got to like high school and everything, I was fudging every book report, I was just reading the cliff notes and, quickly doing them. It wasn't until later in life that I got really into books. And once I read one I really liked, I wanted to read another one. And then I ended up having an insatiable appetite for knowledge. I just liked to learn. So one Robert Kiyosaki book is going to turn you into his next one. And then you're going to go read The Richest Man in Babylon. And then you're going to go read the next thing. So it's a lot about just really getting started. But all the information that you will ever need is on your phone. And most of it is free. So you can get a lot of free books. You get an Apple phone, the Apple books or whatever it's called. Most of those are free. So access to information isn't the problem. It's, hopefully folks my age and the parents of the world, encouraging their kids to spend time on that type of stuff that'll make a major difference in their life and what the benefits are, and deterring them from spending time on platforms that will just waste time for them.
Yeah. And with everyone wants to have wealth. They want to live a good life and just live a life of retirement, I guess. And for you, what are some of the steps that you took to kind of like build a base of wealth or income?
Sure. Everybody wants to be wealthy. The problem is their behaviors don't match their goals. They've got a cognitive dissonance, if you will. So everyone's telling me, oh, I'm going to be super successful or whatever. But you're going out on the weekends, but you're not getting up early and working on this stuff, but you're not reading any books. Like what are you doing that's going to make you successful? I think everyone just looks at Instagram and social media, and people have always been like this. It just isn't now. They look at their neighbor and see what they have and go, oh, it must be pretty easy. If I just work hard for a couple of weeks, I'll get that too. And that's not really the case. There's a tremendous amount of work that has to take place. So for me, I'm fairly intelligent, but not as intelligent as I'd like to be. So much of my success has come from hard work, just brutal hard work, failure over and over and over again, until you just get used to it. And it's almost a game. You don't mind the failure. Of course, I want to win all the time, but I'm okay to fail because it gives me an opportunity to pivot. So, I would say stock options. When I got into stock options, I traded. I didn't necessarily know what I was doing. I educated myself on YouTube, and then it didn't go well, and I had to go take some formal education and spend $20,000 on a course that was intensive for a year to figure out how to do that. All those pain points. I mean, it was painful to take my original money and learn on YouTube and then lose it all. It was painful to try to come up with 20 grand to learn that extra thing. It's painful along the way. No matter what you're doing, you're going to fail. The marker of success, of successful people, is that they're okay with failing and they just continue. Like, why stop? Most people in life will try something, will fail, and then they'll say, that's not for me. I tried investing, it wasn't for me. And then they'll settle back into the spot where they were before, where they don't have any wealth. And, they'll blame it on their family or their upbringing or their education or the opportunities they didn't get. All that's a bunch of BS. It really all comes down to how much do you really want it? It's the reason some 9-year-old kid in Uganda can create a solar platform or whatever that makes him $1 million at that age. It's the same reason a 14-year-old can have a YouTube channel that's making $250,000 a year. If you really want it, there's a million opportunities, but it's challenging, and you got to be okay to just fail all the time while you're trying to get good at something. Eventually you'll look back. Like, I still think I suck at stuff, but I look back at where I was 2 years ago. I'm like, wow, I don't even recognize myself 2 years ago. That's how it should be. And if I can give you guys some advice, and it'll probably it'll probably happen even faster for you, but for adults, like any of my employees, I tell them, every 2 years, you should look back and really recognize yourself. You should have developed so much, read so many books, feel different. You should be like, man, I was garbage back then. I'm so much better now. At your age, about every year, you should look back and go, I was terrible last year. Like, I'm so much better. My podcasts are so much better. I'm a better public speaker. I'm better. You should force yourself to be that. If you aren't looking back a year before and thinking, I wasn't good back then you're not trying hard enough. You got to push yourself harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, um, so on one of your posts on Instagram, you put out a quote, and it says, "In 6 months, you will have 6 months of exercise or 6 months of progress. The choice is yours." And I was just wondering, why is it important for taking the time that we have right now to exercise and to continue making progress to better ourselves?
Sure. So there are two parts to it. One, it's you'll have 6 months of excuses or you'll have 6 months of results. So it's really, you're either going to go one direction or the other. You're either going to do nothing and then have the excuses of why you couldn't do it, or you're going to try really hard and fail on the way, and you're going to have 6 months of results of you trying something. So you could, like, let's just say you didn't start your podcast, but you're going to do it. You were going to do it. 6 months from now, you still, couldn't get the right mic, and you just, the camera set up and we don't have a space or whatever, right? You can have all those excuses. Or in 6 months, you can look back and say, hey, we've made 40 episodes and 10 of them were really good, 10 of them really sucked. How can we do better next time? You've got that experience to rely on and to build on, I guess. So it's just, you just have to start. But on another note, as far as like exercise, I mean, for me, being physically fit is a part of success. And there's a few different reasons for that. It's one of the only, I guess, categories or ways you can really, truly challenge yourself. And you'll always be okay. Like, you can't stress test your business by wondering what would happen if you didn't have enough money in the bank account or whatever. It's not a real life scenario. But if you guys go outside right now and run as fast as you can for 1 minute, you'll basically be dying, sitting on the curb, just struggling, but then you can push yourself through that mental barrier and get back up and do it again. You're not going to die, but you feel like you are, right? So you can push yourself past boundaries you thought were there. So I think it's very important to be physically fit, because it shows that you can take care of yourself. Like in business, and this could go whatever way, but in business, when someone is not at least in reasonable shape, I don't know that I want to do business with them, because if they can't take care of themselves, then how are they going to take care of my business and their fiduciary responsibilities? So and everyone doesn't have to be like a bodybuilder or anything, but you need to at least be at the point where you take care of yourself, you look nice, you dress nice, you do all those things, because it says a lot about who you are and how disciplined you are. And you want to do business with people who are disciplined. So when things get weird, that they're, that they're able to overcome all the obstacles that you're running into.
Yeah. And kind of like what you were saying, you want to look good, you want to feel good and stuff like that. How important is it for someone to just take care of themselves and like just make sure they're doing their best that they can?
I mean, there is no other way to live. If not, you're wasting your time. So you go through some periods in your life where you don't care as much, but those are, I wish that I would have had any of those times. I wish I would have cared the whole time, all the time. And I wish I would have cared earlier on about knowledge and acquiring knowledge and all that. I mean, I grew up with a very blue collar father, loved my dad, one of my heroes. But he at that time, especially, he didn't have financial education. He didn't know any of this stuff. He couldn't mentor me on any of the stuff, any of the things that I've learned about those categories. So I didn't have anyone to tell me how important they are. It's really the rich dad, poor dad thing. Like, my dad's a super hard worker, but he would fall more in the poor dad category. Now he's getting better and better and learning and making investments and starting small businesses and all that type of stuff. But he was so young when he had me. I mean, he was taking care of, he was still a kid trying to raise a kid. So I'd say that it's incredibly important to, look and feel good about yourself, but to force yourself to just always be growing mentally. Because if you do it now, you'll be 10 years ahead of your peers in just a couple of years.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could tell us about B3, aka Business Bounce Back series. Is that
Sure.
a podcast
Yeah.
that you are in?
No, so we did a series. So a partner of mine who lives out in California had a business that did a lot of business consulting, and she brought me on as a partner. And we, when COVID hit, businesses were just struggling, and I don't think a lot of them really knew how to pivot and try some different angles and how to bounce back. So we just decided to spin up the Business Bounce Back series to discuss a lot of those categories. And some were in e-commerce, some of them were staffing related. So we did a bunch of things, a bunch of different episodes. I think we only maybe posted about 5 of them, but they're all pretty good. But a lot of it's about marketing and how they can change things. And it was just really free information to businesses who were struggling, that hopefully they would watch it, find a couple of good nuggets in there, and it would help turn the tides of their business, make it more profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. A question I had is, what do you think about like cryptocurrencies?
Cryptocurrency is a broad topic. I think there's a few things. I don't think cryptocurrency will ever go away.
Yeah.
It's just a different way to do money, digital money. And then that whole finance space is it's just ever evolving. So cryptocurrencies do a lot of different things. Some have no function as a money, as a currency, but they work on a platform. Some don't have a real purpose for currency in the real world, but they do in the metaverse. So anywhere you want to, work in that metaverse, you got to transact in these certain type of cryptocurrencies, but you'd never pull those out and use them in real life or use them in daily commerce. Yeah. So the biggest thing with that technology that's going to change the world faster and be more mainstream is actually blockchain technology, which is what the cryptocurrency rides on. Blockchain technology will blow everything out of the water. Everything will change. Your car title can be faked, but if you had a car title that was essentially an NFT on the blockchain, there's no way to fake it, because what the blockchain does and what NFTs are and all that type of stuff. If I try to sell you an NFT that I took a screenshot of and I'm trying to sell it to you, the system looks back at itself and says, how did you get it? The last person that had this person, there's no record of it transferring to you. There's no record on the ledger of you now having it. This can't be real. So what blockchains are is a bunch of little computers all working together, verifying transactions to make sure that whoever really owns it, that's the authentic one. So you can't create counterfeits in that world. So that means driver's licenses, house deeds, the title to your car, like mortgage documents, all that type of stuff will live very soon, maybe the next 5 years, on the blockchain. So that technology in itself will change how we do business in general. And then cryptocurrencies, we will see cryptocurrencies kind of take over normal currencies. The big issue is, are they centralized or decentralized? So the reason when the government gets their hands on everything, they pretty much screw it up, right? The problem with US dollars is they took it off the gold standard and they can print as many as they want. And when you can print as many as you want, causes inflation. They're worthless because they just keep printing and printing. That's why our dollar has lost 99% of its buying power in the last 100 years. So what Bitcoin and that in particular cryptocurrency does is it limits the supply. So there's only so many Bitcoins. So when the Bitcoins run out, then you're taking fractions of Bitcoins, and the more interest, if the supply stays the same and demand increases, price increases. So it's a store of value. So the US government will try to put out their own cryptocurrency, but unless it's a closed loop system and there's only a certain amount of tokens, they're just going to keep printing cryptocurrency like they do whatever. Plus they could look at every transaction you ever did. So you really, in an ideal world, you want finance in that manner to be relatively decentralized, so the government can't control the supply, and people. So it provides a store of value over time, because like an ounce of gold on 100 years ago would buy you a nice suit and it was worth, $20. An ounce of gold today will buy you a nice suit and it's worth 2,000. So that's an example of a resource that's finite in nature that you can't make more of. It only comes out of the ground at a certain rate, holding its value. That's why gold and silver were original money. And that's why we tied our dollar to gold for so long. But then governments decided, hey, I can't just deficit spend forever. I can't just spend money I don't have if it's tied to something that's limited in resource. So they take you off the gold standard, and then they can print as much as they want and send it to other countries and do whatever. And the only people that hurts is us, as the taxpayers and the citizens of the country.
Yeah.
So that was a long answer for cryptocurrency, but it's gonna change the world. And I would say, do your research, try to get in projects that are good if you're going to invest a little bit in it, but sprinkle your money around, $50 here, $100 here, see what takes off, learn the system. Some of those will take off and you'll make a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah. So basically, don't put your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in the crypto world, unless you're feeling like extremely good about it. Like if you put all your eggs in the Bitcoin basket, you're probably in good shape and you could double that investment in the next 2 years. But if you're looking to get 10x, 50x, 100x returns, where you're trying to make a ton of money, like be the guy who got into Shiba Inu quickly or Dogecoin or whatever early on, you've got to gamble. And so you just got to do your best research you can, throw some money in. But Ripple could be the next big cryptocurrency, or it could be Cardano. So if you only put your money in Ripple and Cardano goes off, then you don't make anything. So ideally, if you're playing in the crypto world, I would just get started slow and buy a little of this, little of that, research the projects, and hopefully one of the 10 you invest in takes off and you make 100 times returns on that one investment.
So for our final question on the podcast, it's usually known as the big question. So,
okay.
Ready?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So what advice would you give to our generation?
Oh, to your generation, I've got an hour's worth of advice to give to your generation. But I'll say this, and this is really for everybody, but definitely your generation. I would say, be patient for the results. Be patient with the results, but be relentless with the work and effort. Right. So, in my life, I almost always end up getting what I want, but I never get it in the way that I thought I was going to. I'll set a goal and I think it's a straight line. I'm going to go from point A to point B and I'm going to get exactly what I want. It never goes like that. It's all over the place. And you want a new job, you apply for it, you interview, you're like, I got it. This is the perfect role for me. And then you don't get it. And then you apply for 10 more and interview and you don't get them. Then you're feeling all down about yourself. Then you get the 11th job and it turns out to be the best thing ever. So you ended up getting, your dream job, but you did not get it in the way that you thought you would. So I think life is always like that. And the difference between, successful people and people that aren't successful are people that aren't successful give up on job number 5 and, they just settle for something else. People that are successful keep it going until they get what they want. And that has to do with failures. I mean, that has to do with you going home and be like, man, they didn't like me. You're second guessing yourself. I'm not skilled enough. I'm not this, I'm not that. I mean, you're going to have some brutal moments with yourself and be very honest about what you're good at and what you're not good at. And when you're not good at something, you need to get on YouTube and learn it and get better at it. So in the next interview or the next job that you have, you can excel in that category. Yeah. So again, it would be patient with the results, but absolutely relentless with the work it takes to get there. So, you don't need to be a millionaire tomorrow. That doesn't matter, but you need to be grinding like you want it to happen tomorrow. So, you need to wake up in the morning and hit the ground running and try to get as much done as you can, try to get as much knowledge as you can, but know like a week in, you're not going to have the results. It could take you a lot of stuff I work on. I mean, some stuff will take you, a week to get good at when you thought you were going to get good in a day. Some things will take you a month to get good at when you thought you were going to get good in a week. Some things will take years. I'm still years into trying to perfect things, So it's going to be a brutal road, but you just have to be patient with the results and just work like your life depends on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it was great meeting you guys, and thank you. You asked a lot of great questions, so it was great to try to answer those for you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
That's all we got for you on the Three Peaks podcast, and we'll see you hikers on the trail later.